Hello everyone, my name is Cameron Baels. Thank you for having me in this board meeting today. We will discuss the launch of Apple Merchant, what it has to do with regards to jobs to be done, moments of struggles, its feasibility, and more. So let's begin with the jobs to be done. So the job to be done for Apple Merchant is to increase businesses' abilities, specifically small and medium-sized businesses, to accept non-cash payments, thus increasing their revenues while having safety and security support and a dashboard to easily track financials. The reason being is the moments of struggles, particularly on the merchant side, but also felt by customers of these businesses. So some of these moments of struggle based on data that we collected was that 1 in 3 Americans has less than $20 on hand to be able to make a cash payment without having to first access an ATM or other cash equivalent to provide this financing. Approximately a quarter of those surveyed, over 1,000 individuals, did not carry any cash on them. This was particularly evident in a younger demographic, and more than half of Americans from this survey were actually frustrated by businesses that only had cash payments available. So what exactly is Apple Merchant and how does it solve these problems? So Apple Merchant, as I previously mentioned, is primarily geared towards small to medium-sized businesses, and it's primarily focused on a new point of sale system, which is also known as a POS system, for these businesses to have better financial transparency without having an accounting department or finance department to track these type of costs, easily to be viewed by owners and everyday individual employees. And it also provides the means to acquire revenue through means that are not solely dependent on cash. It has a pricing structure that is also depicted at the latter end of your slide. So with the Apple Merchant POS system, with regards to transactions and reporting, you have this financial information that makes it, one, easier to do your taxes, two, easier to steer the business, and three, just more transparency when having to deal with financial implications in day-to-day operations, let alone ones in a pandemic. It also has the flexibility to be customized, to be viewed daily, weekly, monthly, annually financials, and it stores all of that data with Apple's security. Apple has never been hacked to any great extent for any of their existing electronic products. So this also provides these businesses some peace of mind with regards to the security of these financial pieces of information. It also allows them to have several different payment options for their employees, for customers, and for themselves. And it also has customer support from Apple, similar to the Genius Bar you could see at Apple locations in malls or otherwise, able to talk to live people in either a chat box if you don't have the time to get on the phone, or you can call them up directly. So now switching gears to look at the second stage of the AVID methodology. So we had 23 undershot, 5 must be, and 2 overshot values. Direct sales and public relations and advertising strategies are also important in this regard. And design of a prototype that includes a much more optimal solution than what's existing out there. Based on our research that we did, customers prefer to swipe, tap, or insert a card, not just simply swipe or pay with cash. They prefer to have human customer service and support. This is more so geared on the merchant side. And visual dashboards needed and desired by merchants are also available. So moving into the third stage of the AVID methodology, we also have a green light here, and you can see on the screen how we plan to go about using this validation of our opportunity. We also see that Apple has a much more desirable brand than the next best solutions, i.e. competitors, even including PayPal, which is very recognized in the United States, in addition to Clover and Square. So with regards to switch dynamics, primarily we're getting businesses that either didn't have this POS system before, they had standard cash registers or other forms of acquiring payment, or businesses that have competitors out there that are paying higher fees with less support and less security. So the differential value, Apple is clearly the preferred brand. The 1.5% fee that we would charge on sales is much less than the standard 2 to 3 of competitors. Apple is also known to have great security. Like I mentioned before, they're basically never hacked on a massive scale. Apple integrates well with existing Apple technologies such as cell phones and computers and iPads. 50% of the US market over the last decade approximately has had iPhones, so this is a lot of potential connection between the POS system and phones of business owners or employees if they need to track something while not in the office or at the business, and also strong customer service department and account management. So let's now look at the business ecosystem risks and the mitigation strategies we've come up with. So with co-innovation risk, we have this as low to moderate. The reason being, there are several logistics companies out there, and we're going to utilize multiple and not just one. And we also have several credit card partners that we can contract with. With regards to the adoption change risk, we have this a bit higher at moderate to high risk because credit card companies also have the ability to change rates based on whatever the federal rate might be, or if they're having financial difficulties, or if they just want to have increased profits for any other reason, maybe for their stock value. Similarly, logistics companies can have issues, especially during pandemic times, with having either employees out of work for whatever reason, whether it be sick or they have received benefits by other means that are greater than their current pay at this employer. And additionally, spikes in online sales and increased shipping costs and timelines due to the current situation can also make this moderate to high risk for us. However, with regards to mitigating these, we can use, as I said, several different logistics suppliers, and we also have a lot of cash on hand to be able to pay a premium to get materials and our finished goods to the locations that they are needed to if it comes to that extent. Similarly, we can contract with credit card companies to have fixed rates so that they can't break out of the rate that we have assigned and passed on to the merchant purchasing our POS system. So this gives us as well as our merchant some security without having really the fear of the contract being broken. Otherwise, we would have financial repercussions charged to these supplier companies that we could use to offset this increased costs. So now we come to, in my opinion, the most interesting part, the financial analysis, talking about dollars and cents. So what we see here on the screen is our projection for the first year annual revenue. We determined based on a market study that there are 13.9 million point of sale systems in the United States. We feel that we can capture 10% of this market in the first year, giving us 1.39 million point of sale systems sold in our first year. 92% of which will be Apple existing customers. 5% will be those getting a small business bundle. So these are previous Android or PC users, but are now switching to Apple computers, phones, as well as a POS system. And then the latter remaining percentage would be those who are going to pay full price, who are just switching to a POS system, aren't existing Apple customers and don't wish to have Apple computers such as iMac or Apple iPhones. So multiplying these amount of customers times the prices seen below, the 41,700 full price times the 1,000, the 1.3 million times the Apple discount price, and then the 69,500 times the $500 gives you the projected sales for full price, Apple discount, and small bundles respectively, summing to 1.16 billion. And then below the 4.3 billion comes from taking 1.5% of sales of these small businesses for doing all the background security work, etc. And the small business average revenue for a year is $205,250. So multiplying this times the amount of the point of sale systems and the percentage gives us the 4.3 billion. So the 1.16 billion plus the 4.3 gives us the 5.4 billion seen at the bottom of the screen. With regards to the cost, let's start with fixed. We have rent of $11 million, insurance of $1.2 million, which is $100,000 times 12 months. Then we have the wage for hourly employees. This is taking the highest minimum wage that is currently paid in Chinese markets, which is $3, times our amount of employees. Then we have PPE, so personal protective equipment costs and shipping costs. Then transitioning to the direct costs, we have the system production staff, the system development costs, then the physical construction of the POS systems, packaging, and then materials and tooling. Finally, with indirect costs, we have marketing costs as well as security costs. So when we look at the revenue minus our costs, we get to a first year profit of 1.36 billion. This is in line with what the required 25% we are looking for is, and this is equivalent to roughly 2% of Apple's profit in the year 2020. So how are we able to do this? So first and foremost, switch dynamics. Switch dynamics has 6 major switching costs, which Apple has an advantage over all the nearest competitors in every one of these categories, arguably. So cost to use and set up is pretty easy and very easy to understand and follow. If any one of you has ever had an Apple product, there's prompts on the screen that help you set up the device and show you how it's used. Similarly, cost to acquire is pretty easy. It's a very well-known brand and POS systems aren't new to people, so this combination with Apple and POS systems is pretty easy cost to acquire. The cost of learning is also not too difficult. As we said, 92% of our first year customers are projected to be existing Apple customers, so that app system and the way everything looks on a screen, whether it be your phone or computer, won't be that different on our POS system. The cost of adverse consequences, you generally don't have many people who are upset with the Apple brand who are brand loyal, so this high percentage of existing customers refutes a lot of this. Similarly with cost dissatisfaction. And then opportunity costs, there isn't really a major issue here either because existing products in the market aren't doing anything that's more subsequent or providing any additional benefit versus what we are offering. So here's a breakdown of the annual sales of small businesses, which is how we got the $205,000 to do our revenue calculation. So this is just showing part of the market research. Then the market research in a little bit more detail, with there being 31.7 million small businesses and 13.9 million POS systems, this is a very viable market. And Apple has also had close to a 50% market share over the last decade, and as near as the last 2 years, it's been at 49%. So the bargaining power of buyers, Apple has continued to make substantial expenditures in R&D. This includes their AirPods, Apple Watches, and other such devices. Apple has always been successful in competing and being at the forefront of R&D. And then the customer base is also not really going to abandon iPhones or any Apple products anytime soon. So once we can have these customers switch to us in the first place, they really aren't going to be able to leave, at least based on what our studies have found. So the bargaining power of suppliers on the flip side, as you can see here, the suppliers' bargaining power is relatively weak due to Apple's immense size and there being several suppliers for what Apple actually needs to create these POS systems. So they have to battle each other a lot of the time, which makes their bargaining power against us even weaker. So if there are any questions, please feel free to contact me and put them in the comment box. And I hope you have a very nice rest of your day. With finance, and then we have some backup slides to further exemplify some of the topics we discussed previously in this presentation. So for example, here's our CBC survey talking about the attributes and their respective utilities in comparison to alternatives. Here is where we see where Apple Merchant is preferred, where it is at least the same price or less than competition. This is further exemplified here in this slide as well. Here additionally, so more facts about how the cost structure works, the low security costs based on existing aspects of Apple, other branches, in other words, or other divisions, cybersecurity, low additional transportation costs based on how many electronic products we already distribute to the world, including the US, and minimal additional customer service and training costs because we already have a very well-trained staff existing. Here's data showing the amount of POS terminals in the US, the history of Apple iPhone sales, the amount of small business customers in the US, and the financial breakdown of each of those groups on average. And this was the former team members who worked in the team.